Hey guys, so before that I have been saying that I will be doing a video showcasing each of the crystal passive. So here I decided to share regarding crystal passive U2 because I think among the crystal passive I really like this one, and usually I just put it there regardless if it's actually really that useful or not for that specific character. So anyway, let us start with U2. So after this, maybe I'll be doing A1, A2, I haven't really decided, but I will slowly be doing it. Probably every week I will be showcasing one or two, so that by the time this drops in GL, then we will be able to get the full showcase for each crystal passives. So what exactly is crystal passive U2? Let me repeat that again. Basically, at the start of the quest, so grants the following: first turn becomes instant turn, first turn does not contribute to turn count. So if you are familiar with Core, for example, he always starts with 2 turns, that the first turn is a turn that is instant and it does not contribute to turn count. So basically with this crystal passive, then every character with this will be able to get 2 turns right at the start of the quest. If you use it on character that already have this, for example Core, then they will get 3 turns. Okay, so they will get 3 turns, which makes it really good for character like this, because they usually need more than 2 or 3 turns to set up. So again, a shout out to Doritos99 for summarizing this and provide a very good infographic regarding the crystal passives. So here's a run I did on the latest JP Shinryu. So I have Core, Rosa, and Cloud all having U2 passive, because I cannot unequip the U2 passive on one of them if I want blue crystal to have that passive. So once I equip it, everybody will get the same passive. So here Core usually have the issue of setting up, because now with his BT, he can apply oath buff on both character, and he only started with 2 turns without the U2 crystal passive. So like if you put it on Cloud, then you use his BT, then you have to wait for another turn to use his S2 or S1 again on the other character, so that everyone now will have oath buff. And another issue is that he also have his EX, so he is a character that you really need a lot of turns to set up. So here, giving him 3 turns, he can oath Cloud, enter BT, and then oath Rosa. And for Rosa, she doesn't really need it. So in situation where you use this crystal passive and you actually don't need it because the character already start with full buffs, you don't need to use the LD, don't need to use the EX, and if you want to directly go into supercharging, go into fast charging to get a gauge up, then don't be afraid to just waste that free turn. Okay, as long as it eases your setup phase, then it should be fine. But anyway, now at this point, I have Core buff on everyone, and now Rosa is just charging the gauge. And I have 2 turns for Cloud, because he also have the U2 crystal passives. So here the advantage is that what I'm doing to Cloud is not really in the sense to set up, but now he can directly enter his BT and activate FR, which to me is really very strategic. Like you don't have to wait for another turn. So like if you want to use Cloud FR as the main FR, the character just probably need to start the last in after you do all the setup. So they are the last character that will be doing their BT and then right into the main FR phase, which is what I'm doing here to showcase. This is how that we can actually exploit or basically use U2 crystal passive to its max potential. Okay, so here directly I enter Cloud's BT to get all the BT effect up. Then I will be directly jumping into his FR. So now you can just watch the remaining of the fight, because I did indeed do a full fight to show how useful this whole setup can be. And basically for those who watch like Excalibur Theologica, they usually have a very smooth and optimized early phase, right? To set up everything and then goes supercharging and everything, make sure everything is all done, then they just go all out in damage, right? So if you are really into those kind of gameplay, then you will really like U2, trust me. You will really like U2 because it does ease up so much in terms of all those setups and getting into forced time. Okay, so you can just watch the remaining of the video. Entering forced time, how smooth everything now seems to be because now everybody has all the buffs up and all the FR up and all the BT effect up. So yeah, I did do a recommendation at the end for different crystal passive, like which characters is really good for to use this U2 passive. So if you do not watch, you do not want to watch this entire fight, then just fast forward all the way till the end. Do check out the timestamp that I have included in the video description.
想定済みだ。全力で行く。光をみなぎれ解き放つ。聖なる力で永遠に刻め。消し止め。かとどめだ。じゃあな。承知。続けましょう。
So these are the red crystal characters that can benefit from U2 passive. So for example, Van, he needs the extra turn to use S1 or S2 to change it to the upgraded version. So if you're fighting against single target enemy, you can use S1 and then you use BT. So the next time you use S1, it will be the upgraded version. And if you're fighting against multiple target, you can use S2 or BT. Or if you want to make everything upgraded, then the first two turn, then you just use S1 and S2. So now both will be at plus version. So the second character here is Aerith. I'm pretty sure all of us really want Aerith to have this feature, because every time we use her BT, then when we use her Echo, she doesn't really charge up her overhead buff enough to deal maximum damage. So imagine if you start the turn or start the quest, you use her BT, now you can use Healing Wind to charge up that 200,000 overhead number so she can deal maximum damage, and then after that she can directly hop into her, well, and after that, you know, to pass a turn you can use LD where you inflict debuff. All of this now can be done just right at the start. So I do think that, you know, crystal passive U2 is actually very good for Aerith. Here I have Kurasame. So Kurasame, why I put him here is because I always like to inflict maximum level of hero, then only enter his BT. So with this, I kind of like able to do it right at the beginning. But I do understand that when we are using his FR, it will also inflict level 5 hero. So this is kind of like, it depends on what you want. Beatrix is really good because she starts with her EX charge, and with her EX charge she can then use HP plus and get that Holy Knight buff up that prevents all form of damage. And now with her BT, well, she technically have not arrived yet to GL, her BT that is, will make the Holy Knight buff permanent, right? As long as the BT effect is up, the buff will be there. So she will want as fast as possible to get the buff up. So U2 will really help her out. Calgar as well, like you want to use some of his LD, EX and BT, so with U2 it does really speed them up as well. And Rex, if you go for like party defense, you can use the S2, then everyone will get the shield and he will start covering everyone before you enter his BT. But currently in GL, when using Rex, I really use him mainly as a DPS character. So most of the time, I do not even need to use his S2. So it really depends on what you want to do with him. Then you decide if you want to use Crystal Passive as U2. For blue, I have demonstrated Core, so no doubt about him being great with Crystal Passive U2. For Neon, she needs to use her LD in order to be able to increase her debuff stack up to 10. So she always has to start with LD, and I find it a bit troublesome if I have to wait another turn before I use a BT. So with Crystal Passive U2 is LD, BT, and there you go, rainbow damage. So she's really good with that passive. For Ursula's case, you need to use LD, and she will be granted, if not mistaken, 3 upgraded HP plus. So if you want to like right off the bat set up everything, then you might want to use her LD first in order to get the upgraded HP attack before entering her BT. But it really depends on how you play. It's not necessary that you need to get her upgraded HP plus. Mog is a pretty good candidate here because if you use his BT right at the start, then you use jump and you get another consecutive turn, then you can use like, I don't know, his LD, EX or C-Ray jump or things like that. Then you increase the probability of inflicting confusion on the enemy. So I do think that that can be very tactical as well. Now for green crystal, Ram. Okay, Ram buff, her LD buff that allows her to do full out attack is actually pretty short. And if you directly use her to fast charge the gauge, then you will be left with the option, should I be pressing her LD at this point or her BT? Which I always find it very unoptimal in terms of setting up. So if you have Crystal Passive U2 for Ram, then the first move that you can do is her LD. So it increases, it renews the buff, and then you can safely use her S1 or S2 and start to charge the gauge. Okay, so I do find Crystal Passive U2 to be pretty good for Ram. Ace as well, because using his LD then directly uses his HP plus, triggering the trap, and then now you can directly jump into his BT. And knowing that when you are setting up like using another character that has fast charging, then his trap will be going off every time, so somewhat increases the overall damage output of the team. Sephiroth also need a certain skill to be used for his buffs to ramp up, so I do think that giving an extra turn will definitely help. And that is similar to Dorgan, where you use LD before you enter this BT, just to make sure that you refresh that buff before you enter the force time phase. For yellow crystal, there's not a lot that actually benefit from U2. Like Tifa, definitely she can use it to a certain extent, but you know, chaining so many skill before you enter FR sometimes can be quite of a waste, right? Why don't you set everything up and then only do all the blasting once the HP damage bonus is high? Then we have characters like Baltier and all those, probably doesn't really need U2 passive. So here I have is Bards, because he also have the condition where you need to use a skill in order for it to upgrade to another version. And for Charlotta, with the same reason as Ursula, if you do want to accumulate on that chuck stuff, then she can benefit from this passive, or else basically she doesn't need it. Then here we have the last two crystal, white and black. On Penelo, because Penelo, we can always start off with her LD, then we charge the gauge, we use FR, then we use the BT. While doing all that, as long as we use her LD at the beginning, I do believe her overhead buff will not expire, right? So she can make use of that. Sarah, she needs several turns to ramp up her BT stack. So the first thing you do is enter her BT, then you can use LD or S2. Then on the next turn, LD or S2 or S1, then you will get 3 stack on her BT. So it does expedite Sarah's stack. Okay, so U2 is useful for her. Anna Crow as well, because I always use her S1 first to renew the buff, because that buff can be quite short and can be quite tricky after it falls down. Anna will not be able to do max damage. So I would usually use S1, then maybe the next turn BT or something if I'm given crystal passive U2. Queen as well, she started with EX, so if you want to use her EX and directly jump into her BT setup and just go boom, then yes, she needs it. Or else she doesn't really need it because the first skill, her EX start with max charge at the beginning of the fight. So you can use that, then the next turn you use BT. But crystal passive U2 will make it faster. For VV, I think you kind of want to activate double fire as soon as possible. So he has to use EX, now you have double fire, then you use BT. Okay, so he does need several turns, so U2 passive will help him out. Noctis, you want to use LD to get the buff up, so now all his attack will have Brave Gain in between HP dumps, because if you don't, then he actually will not cap. So everything will become easier if he does have that crystal passive on. Astos, kind of like I wanted to use LD and then BT, you know, just to get the overhead numbers going so that he exceeded the HP damage limit and will be dealing broken damage. So it will be very good for him if he have consecutive turn. Oren start with 2 turns, so now with this he get 3, so you can just go EX, LD, BT, right? Then just wait for the next character or back to himself to activate FR, and then you just go full off turn. Okay, so it's really good for Oren as well. Then Squall start with his overhead at 1 stack. So now if he start with 2 turns, then you can just use LD, LD, and now it's already at 3 stacks, which is maximum, or LDBT, so 2 stack, then his BT is activated, then you can use it another time during his BT phase or anything else. For Kieran as well, he does want his can't remember that overhead drop of something, so if he can max it out, then enter his BT so he can ensure everyone is hitting maximum cap for all time. Okay, so anyway, these are just samples of characters. Okay, and I've showcased the video. I hope you really like this series. So stay tuned for more video like this coming in a couple of weeks and even month, at least before the official launch in GL. So thank you very much and have a good day.